Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ad Hoc Committee on Economic Recovery and Reinvestment special meeting for Friday, April 15th, tax day. It's not too late to get your extension. Monday? Not that tax day, actual tax day. So hope everybody's got their taxes in or their extensions. That said, we do have other business with the federal government today besides the paying of our taxes and our donation to other states, which is our funds and an update on our spending of different departments. We've been highlighting departments individually now to get a sense of where our stimulus funds are and how quickly we can get them moving and get people back to work and solve some of the most pressing problems we face as a city. Today our topic is going to be around transportation, and it's great we have our chair of our transportation committee here, Mr. Bill Rosendahl. Two of us right now are only two members, but we do expect other members of the committee to be here shortly. Why don't we get an overview real quick on just where we're at, and then we'll go into the Department of Transportation. Just a real quick run down. Again, this is the latest update here, which is available at our city website, which is recovery.lacity.org. And Rushmore Cervantes.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. So far, the city is making good progress relative to our expenditures. We're right now at through the end of February, we're about 40% expenditure rate with obligations at 55%. There are still a number of outstanding contracts that need to be executed. Through February, it was a total of 86 contracts that still needed to be executed. However, I know that through today's date, a number of those contracts have been executed, so additional obligations are going to be tracked against these the overall ARA project. So we're in good shape. We've been tracking all of the various projects, and there are some exceptions where there are issues that we help push them along, but by and large, most of the projects are moving forward quite well. We're tracking the overall job counts on a monthly basis that you have in your report here. And then, in addition to that, within next week or so, we're going to be releasing a stimulus at a glance that will be a one-pager for distribution to all the council offices. They can have in the field offices that will be disseminated to all commissioners as well as all the recreation and park facilities, so that any given time people can know where we are at any given time on a monthly basis as to the expenditure rate and the deliveries of services. In addition to that, within the next 30 days, we should have a revised website for full transparency. This is above and beyond what's already been created, which is kind of a wonkish type of website, which is very factual, but we want to make it more user-friendly, where we'll have, with the assistance of Bureau of Engineering staff, we're going to have a GIS mapping capability where any constituent can look online and be able to identify within a zip code or a street what activities are taking place within their community, what monies are being spent. So it'll be a better way by which constituents can not only see what's going on, but actually see how they can apply for potential resources for themselves.
Great. And we were pleased to welcome the chair of the White House Council on Environmental Quality, Nancy Sutley, former deputy mayor, here on energy and environment yesterday, as we rolled out the grants that are being given to community groups throughout Los Angeles for energy efficiency block grants to be able to, and conservation, as well, to look at ways of saving Angelenos money on their water and power bills and in their businesses and homes. So that was great to see, and we've got, I think, 15 or 18 different community groups covering the entire city doing that, so that was good to see. Okay, thank you for this update. This portfolio, again, is available. We look forward to seeing the tracker when it comes, or at a glance document. With that, let's go ahead and ask the Department of Transportation to come forward.
Can we just ask one question?
Oh, sorry, but before that, I think we have one question from Mr. Rosendahl.
Yeah.
But you can come forward, Amir, at the same time.
Yeah, good morning, and I appreciate making a user-friendly website. Might be wonkish or not, but people do want to know what's going on and what's happening. Is it at all possible for you to give me an update right now as to how much money we've received, how many jobs we've created, and where we are with the timeline one of the criticisms, and I know it wasn't justified, was we weren't spending it fast enough or creating enough jobs fast enough. And obviously the issue was, how do we put it in the pipe and how do we make it go with the rules? If you could give us an overview update, I'd appreciate it.
Well, certainly. The original award was approximately $630 million, but due to right-sizing, spending, closing out some of the grants, we're down to about $616 million that the city was awarded. We've spent about $243 million to date. That doesn't include the obligations as well through contracts, but there's no expenditures against those. But to your point about being unfair about not spending the money quickly enough, there was a big misnomer relative to our grants. It was initially stated that these were all shovel-ready projects, and that just simply was not the case. In many instances, grant recipients had to create programs from scratch, then go through a competitive selection process to award contracts. So within that time frame of 3 years that we've been awarded these contracts, most of them will be expiring in September 2012. Most departments, most projects are on time to achieve their expenditure and delivery of services within that time frame. Our goal within the mayor's our team, working closely with the CEO's office, is to keep pushing the departments along. It doesn't matter if it's fair or not. The rules have changed. There's a lot of scrutiny, a lot of push and pressure to be able to spend the money faster and get the product out. So that's what we were doing. Even though we were given a 3-year period, that's just not reality. At this point, we need to be pushing a much faster clip to be able to get the services out there, and that's what we're doing.
And so you're roughly saying between $300 and $400 million is in the pipe that has been approved, that probably since year one is finished and we're in the second part of the 3-year plan, the idea of doing it right and doing it according to the rules. Do you expect then this year that we're in right now, it's April 15th, May, June through the end of the year, you'll see an acceleration in money spent? And do you have any sense about how many new jobs that might create or projects it might impact? Just give us a sense that this will probably be the second half of 2011. Right. Should be a rather robust year for us in doing this.
Certainly. This is... The $616 million is covered over 110, 111 projects. So there's a variety of different avenues by which the money is to go through. And you are correct in your assumption that through this year, through the end of this calendar year, we're going to see a substantial increase in overall expenditures and delivery of services because we've gone through the design, gone through the competitive selection process, contracts are being awarded. Now the monies are being fully disseminated based on clearly defined goals for contractors or departments as they're moving forward. As far as jobs go, it's really the way OMB has provided guidance as to and direction as to calculate jobs. It's really on a month-to-month basis. What best we can do is count overall hours that we've actually been able to fund, and that's over 4 million hours of paid services in the community. On a monthly basis, as an example, for the month of February, there was 265 equivalent jobs that were employed that particular month, and it varies from month to month. But so the best we can do based on those guidelines is just track it that way on a monthly basis or over the overall hours that are paid.
And the total package that we have been approved out of Washington, is it now finished in terms there's no more additional monies? You said roughly 600?
616 million.
And that's it? There's no more granting?
There's one small program that's been made available that we're looking. Jim Clark is working with DWP to see if that's something that maybe we want to apply for. But by and large, there are no other grants coming out of Washington for stimulus packages.
Now, I see Jim Clark there. Does he want to explain what that is, Jim, real quickly? And that will be the last of the packaging, right, of what we could be possibly going
Jim
for.
Clark, Director of Federal Relations. It's actually money that's come to the state of California, and they're making it available. It's for some energy efficiency planning grant. It's a relatively small amount, a couple of $1 million at most, and I'm just checking with DWP to see if it's something that they plan to pursue. So if so, we'll be coming back to ad hoc as we have done in the past and presenting it to you. But as far as that, I have not seen anything coming out, and all the money from the feds has basically been obligated out to the states, so anything in the future on this would be something that would be coming from the state of California.
Very good. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Sidoti, nice to see you.
Good morning, Council
Morning.
President. Good morning, Councilman Rosendahl. Amir Sadati, Interim General Manager, LA Department of Transportation. I really want to thank Mr. Cervantes, his team, and also we've worked very closely with the Mayor's Office, Mr. Spots, and I think this collaboration has been very helpful, not only for our department, but I believe also for the city, because it's these interrelated challenges that occurred on day-to-day basis on operational departments like ourselves, that by us having this task force really getting the ideas out there, what needs to be done, and there's been a good collaboration and really helping, I think, our department to stay on track. So I just want to make sure that I give kudos to Mr. Cervantes and his team, because it's been very helpful for us.
It's always a smart way to begin your presentation.
Thank you. The department currently has 7 projects, so out of the $600+ million, the Department of Transportation's portion of the ARA funds is about $40 million. We have 7 projects that we would like to take you through. In general, I think as mentioned earlier, some of the challenges for our department has been the contractual processes of going through and getting contractors, especially for the ATSAC or the TPS and the conduit work that needed to be done. And we went through Board of Public Works, we worked with the ConAd, and again through some additional federal requirements, that bid needed to go back out, and unfortunately that was some delay in us getting those projects started. But I'm happy to report, generally, we are back on track on many of those projects, and we'll kind of run you through those. One thing that's a little bit uncertain that I think I may be before you possibly during the budget deliberations would be our state of the budget and how and what impacts ultimately that budget may have. I understand that obviously with the potential coalition agreement there will be some concessions, and I think one of those would be the overtime issue. So right now I think our proposed budget to the mayor and the CO has been to make the department a delivery of projects. We understand there's been a lot of emphasis, and the voters have obviously voted Measure R and other measures, so we want to make sure that as much as we can, we rely our resources and align ourselves, reorg ourselves to be able to deliver on these key projects, not just ARA, but Measure R, 3010 initiatives. So I'm hoping, I think, through the budget deliberations, some of those issues may come up, but if, for example, if there are certain groups or sections within DOT that may still be subject to furlough in the overall big picture, and we may not be able to do the paid overtime, then I think at those times, and again through my budget deliberations, I'll make sure that I'll continue to work with Mr. Cervantes, the Mayor's Office, and this body as far as what impacts they may cause. But with that, I'm happy to answer any general questions, and if not, I can run you through some of the projects.
I have specific questions on the projects, but I have no general ones. Do you have anything
In a general sense, good morning.
Good morning.
I just want to know that as we go forward with these projects, how does this impact the potential furloughs, layoff business, and are they protected within that ARA commitment from that?
So I think the easy answer right now is yes, ARA is reimbursable, so they would reimburse us for overtime. They would reimburse us. It is considered a special source of fund, so managers and staff that are working on it are currently exempted from furloughs because they're charging their time to that project. However, I think, again, as the final coalition agreement is ratified, and depending on what the language is, there will be I think there may be some impact as it comes to paid overtime. And again, if there are provisions made where special funds or reimbursable funds, general funded staff are able to still charge to that and be able to get cash overtime, then that would help, an operational department like myself that's shrunk about 30-35% to be able to use that incentive to be able to get the work done. So I think it's preliminary right now, sir, but I think that's why we put it in as one of our challenges, not knowing what that will be. There might be some impacts, and I think as April, May comes along, and as we work with the ARA ad hoc committee, I'll make sure I'll alert if there's going to be any impacts. But I think we're okay now, and I think that's what the good news is. We're on track, as mentioned, just like some of the other city departments. There was some rough starts due to some unforeseen challenges, but we understand as a department how important it is to deliver these services, to make sure that the federal government and you as a city are able to tell your constituencies that we've got these signals built, we've got these left turns installed, we've got the prioritization for our transit system and the ATSAC. Clean fuel buses. I mean, I think the mayor stated it in his State of the Address, largest clean fuel bus in the nation, and LADOT has its own bus fleet, and that's what we were trying to do, is get additional clean fuel buses so that we're able to provide that greening that this council and the mayor has envisioned for Los Angeles. So I'm really excited and proud of my staff for doing a lot of this good work here, and we're gonna keep at it. This is just the beginning. We have to deliver on these things, and that's my promise to you, is we're going to keep it as tight on schedule as possible and make sure I alert you if there's any challenges ahead that we may need your help.
And the last question I have in a general sense is, and I'm seeing some are $4 million, $9 million, $7 million. What's your total package of all of these?
Approximately $39.9 million, so we're about $40 million worth of that big $600 million sliver. That's DOT's portion.
Okay. And I would urge you, between now and the budget process, which will begin right after April 20th when the mayor announces his budget, that work within the context of that to see if in any way that $40 million impacts that whole discussion about furloughs and layoffs ahead of time. Because if that $40 million can obviously shelter that aspect of it, if we have to go down that route, obviously my constituents and constituents in the city are very interested in synchronization of lights and all of these other projects because of the gridlock nature of our city at this point. So if there's any warning signals that suggest it might become an issue, with a little lead time, obviously it's something that we would want to be able to effectively deal with, assuming we can.
Thank you.
Okay.
We will check.
Thank you.
And why don't we jump to the specific ones?
Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'm going to get Mr. Varejanoyan, our acting principal engineer. He's in charge of 3 of the projects, and if it's okay with you, they just jump around, but that way we'll get 3 projects out of the way.
So I think Mr. Alarcon had a general question before we go into the specific projects. Mr. Alarcon?
Yeah, I appreciate your efforts to get the projects done, notwithstanding the hiring issues. But this is a jobs program. I mean, the federal government gave us this program to stimulate job creation, so I think it's the epitome of irony that we're not hiring the people to get these jobs done, and we're just, again, focusing on the projects themselves and not hiring the people so that we can reduce the unemployment rate. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. Just because they're city employees doesn't mean that they don't go on unemployment. And it seems like we've got this attitude at the city that we're creating jobs in the community, but we can't create jobs in the city? That's ridiculous. So, Mr. Chair, I'm wondering, what is it we're doing to get in line with the policies that started our in the first place, which was to be a job stimulus program? When are we going to start putting these people back on the job?
You can ask that directly to the departments that are involved. That's why we're going.
Well, but he can't answer the question because we have a managed hiring freeze. They can't hire. I mean, that's ridiculous. I've said this from the gate that we should be we should not prevent our people from working when we're relying on federal dollars that are actually created to create jobs, and yet we hamstring our general managers and the departments and the staff by not giving them the authority to hire. I mean, that to me makes us look stupid in the eyes of the federal government.
Obviously, I can't answer the general question.
Where's the CAO? That's the one that should answer this question. They're the ones that
Let's go. We do have about 25 minutes to go through 5 different programs, Mr. Alarcon. So
again, we want to go on the programs. We're talking about jobs.
Mr. Alarcon. So one things I'd like to do as chair is make sure that we get through those as a general question, and we had about 15 minutes at the beginning, I know, before you
Yeah,
arrived,
let's take
which
the
we discussed.
non-important stuff and skip over the important stuff.
No, this is the important stuff, because we'll get into the exact details of why and how we are, the challenges that are detailed in the papers that are before you, I think get to the heart of what you're asking. Each one of these has to do with a specific program. I don't think any of us are unsupportive of that point, but we also can't resolve that. And if that comes at the expense today, the folks that are at this table are not the ones who are going to be able to resolve that. We as policymakers can. I encourage you to, and I think you'd find support from me and others of doing that. But to express the frustration towards these folks not getting the chance to hear the actual programs that we have before us today would be a lost opportunity. So with your permission, I'd like to go through those details, and we can take up the larger issue in the City Council and in the places where managed hiring in Personnel Committee and other places where that is the issue. What is before us, and you'll hear some of the details on the specific programs, it's a combination not just of that, it's also a combination of federal requirements, some of the state requirements that have come here, and some of the logistical details that are in each one of these 6 things. So I'd like to make sure we get a chance to get to that. I'm happy to have anybody else answer who's here in a quick sense, the general question that Mr. Alarcon asked, but I think it's more of a rhetorical question that is action on us, not on them.
Thank you. And diving into the project, as I mentioned, Varej Janoyan, who's the acting principal engineer in charge of the ATSAC operations, has oversight of the 3 of the projects, the transit priority systems and some of the railroad crossing projects. So I'd like for him to go through those 3 projects, tell you a little bit about what they are, where we are with the overall funding, how much we've expended, and any of the possible challenges. So go ahead, Varej.
Thank you. The 3 projects, Transit Priority System and ATSAC, this project will improve the communication infrastructure for the ATSAC system and Transit Priority System. When Transit Priority went into effect, it was built on top of the ATSAC system, so we needed to upgrade the fiber optic system, communication system. So this is a contract that will enable us to purchase and install equipment to better operate the Transit Priority System and the ATSAC system. This project is, the contract has been awarded. It's well underway. We have spent approximately $3.3 million out of the $5.5 million for the contract. Everything is going according to plan and to schedule. The next one we have
Just on that real quick, the reformatting of the original shovel-ready project, was that because of federal requirements, and why did we not anticipate that, or did we have a delay in that?
No, what happened was federal money comes with very, very stringent rules, and one of them, you cannot specify specific vendors for equipment. And because we are integrating new equipment with existing ATSAC equipment, we have no choice but to call specific vendors. And that was a challenge. So we had to reformat the specifications to make sure that we get equipment that will fit with the existing.
In the end, did we get the same equipment that we would have
Basically, yes.
So the federal requirement, I mean, part of what I want to make sure is we get feedback to our federal government about where certain requirements are a hindrance to their goal of getting people back to work and getting some of this infrastructure done. This seems to be one of those cases in which their requirements, I mean, if we have a bunch of Toyota Priuses and they tell us you have to go out to bid for parts that include Hondas and Nissans, it is a stupid requirement to have there.
I completely agree. I mean, if we're starting fresh, then I can understand that you advertise a specification and try to get comparable equipment. But when you have a 20, 25-year-old system and trying to integrate into that system, you can't just bring a Honda part into a Toyota.
And DOT wasn't sympathetic to that. They said these are the rules, we didn't make them, we can't change them, or who? U.S. DOT.
Through working through Caltrans, no. I mean, the rules are the rules, and we had to work around it.
But to be clear, it's the federal.
It's a federal.
Not
it's
the
a federal.
state one.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. We should be tracking, Mr. Cervantes, like a list of. One of the things I'd like to come out of this committee is some sort of report to the feds of, here's things that worked, here's things that just don't work. And I think it's useful not just for our funds, but obviously federal funds in general, when we look at some of these, if they're serious about getting these jobs done, especially in this environment. Go ahead and continue.
So the next project is...
Just one question on that
sure.
first project.
Yeah.
When you mentioned that the $5,598,000, that it would result in labor hours of 199 of contractors, employees, private sector jobs, what's the liaison between that and city employees? And are city employees given an opportunity to be part of this process, or is it just separate in the private sector with 199? Just curious how that works.
That is separate. The 199 is just for the contractor and their subcontractors and the equipment suppliers. City forces are to inspect the job, and that's not part of this.
And how long will this project last? And it says worked 8,667 hours. What kind of a commitment do those 199 have? Is it a year, 6 months, until they spend the money?
The project's scheduled to be completed by June 2012.
I see. Good. Thank you.
And on the previous point that Mr. Alacon made, has managed hiring affected that particular project at all?
Not on that project, sir, no.
Thank you.
The next one is highway rail grade crossing upgrades. We have identified 36 critical railroad crossings in the city that have deteriorated to a point where it started to affect safety and efficiency of the roadway network. These are really deteriorated crossings in terms of the pavement where the railroad meets the street. So we identified 36 locations, and we used the ARA money to improve those locations. And in this case, the challenge was that to have the federal government accept the fact that only the railroad can work on these railroad crossings. So we had to go through a lengthy process through Caltrans and the feds to get permission from the feds so that we can contract directly with the railroads, with BNSF and Union Pacific, so that they will do the work with their own forces, which is, again, something that is prohibited under federal rule. So that was part of the early start delay.
So that was the obligation, and then we had to get special waiver to allow that to happen? Or
That's right. That's right, yeah.
How long did that take about?
From almost a year.
So it's from June 09 to June 10?
Right, June 09 to when we awarded July 2010.
So obviously, these are the issues that have delayed what we were hoping could be faster, but it's the reality of the rules, the federal rules on these different groups.
Once we got the approval, then we had everything in place to contract with the railroads and for them to do the work.
Okay.
So in Union Pacific case, they have already completed 12 out of 16 crossings. And the BNSF, they started a couple of months ago on their 20 crossings.
Now, on that, because so much more work has been done than what showed is expended, is that because they are fronting that money, or we're not expending the ARA funds?
What happened was Union Pacific has already accumulated approximately $2 million worth of charges that is ready for us to pay. There was a delay because Union Pacific, again, is they did not have procedure in place to have all the documentation that is required by federal rules when they document their charges. So it went back and forth for several months, and they could not submit their billings to the city, and we could not pay it because the paperwork was not in the proper format.
I understand that. To Mr. Cervantes, is that part of the 15% in your bar graph? Would that count as unexpended contract balance if the railroads had, for instance, done this work but not yet been paid, or is that still part in the other unexpended? Okay, so I think this is an important point also as people are looking at how much money, are we spending and is it going out? This would be counted as, if to the casual observer somebody reads an LA Times article, et cetera, that we haven't expended those funds, when the reality is the person hours have been expended for much of this work. Trying to get a measure of that may be very difficult to do, but it may be something that we also should try to, for our overall look at our funds, because really what we want to be focusing on in this committee and in the city is what stuff is not even moving at all. And so, looking today, it would seem like it's 45% when it's in reality not probably that high. And I wonder how much more of that 45% fits into categories like this. But don't worry, that's outside of DOT for now. We don't need greater detail. It's just a matter of how we...
Okay. So my last project is as contract is already underway. It is to improve the railroad safety at 6 grade crossings and to replace cameras, ATSAC cameras at 20 other locations. So this will result with 6 highway rail grade crossings being upgraded to current safety and efficiency standards required by the federal government.
Okay. And to Mr. Alicone's earlier point too, any issues here on the staffing side that have slowed these down?
No, there's no issues, and I think one other, just to mention that we do take the burden off the general fund, so even though there's no a real tie, Council President, but these are positions and salaries and hours that we are now charging to these, so that would help the burden off the general fund.
Yep, okay.
And just one question overall on them all, and I think they're great, everything is going great, is when it talks about council districts, who's getting what, whatever, are we able on our website to flesh it out even more so that people would know exactly what area is being covered by this, that, and the other? Or
I think that's what Mr. Cervantes said is coming in the next
so we'll be
couple
able
weeks
to
or so?
truly be able to punch in and say, in this area, this thing has been done, and so on and so forth. That'll be really helpful for people's appreciation of how the money's being spent.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. The next project, I'd like to have our Chief of Transit, James Lefton, walk you through the purchase of the CNG buses, please.
Good morning.
I'd like to talk about an air grant that we have for $8 million approximately to purchase 16 new CNG-powered over-the-road commuter express buses to replace a similar number of diesel-powered buses that we currently have in our fleet. This is part of a much larger order of about 84 buses that we plan on purchasing to replace our entire fleet of diesel-powered buses with new CNG-powered buses. In terms of where we stand right now at the moment, we are negotiating a sole source contract with a firm to provide the buses. We expect
What firm is that and where are they located?
MCI.
Where is that? Where do they manufacture?
They're located on the East Coast. We are currently completing a FTA, federally required cost analysis before we can sign the contract. We hope to complete that analysis and sign the contract by May 1st of this year. We expect the delivery of the first bus on a very aggressive schedule, I might add, by around September of 2011 this year, with the remaining buses to be delivered by the end of November of this year, 2011. And we hope to draw down and draw down the grant funds by January of 2012.
Who were we originally buying them from, and then did they go under, or are they?
Yeah, we were awarded the grant on July 31st, 2009, and we had signed a contract with a firm called Design Line in September of 2009. Unfortunately, they were falling behind in the schedule milestones that we established in the contract, and in November of 2010, we determined that it was not prudent to continue with that firm, so we sent a letter of cancellation of that contract. We had planned to purchase the buses, the inside buses, through a National Joint Powers Authority cooperative in Georgia, but then at the last second there's some issues raised about the process that they use to buy the buses, and we had concerns that we might not be able to use our federal grant funds if there were issues raised after the fact. So we are now pursuing a sole source contract in coordination with the FTA. Everything looks good. Like I said, we expect to complete the final step, which is the federal required cost analysis in the next week or so, and sign a contract by May 1st.
Did we look at any more local firms, or they just don't exist in California?
We have done an RFP back in 2009, and because it really has to do with the type of bus that we're buying, it's it's a commuter-style bus as opposed to a transit bus. So we're looking for a higher floor bus with a larger seating capacity. We only got one response, which was from Design Line, the company that we signed a contract with. It was just recently that MCI, which is a nationally known commuter bus provider, you see a lot of their charter buses running around on city streets. They determined that they were going to build a bus, a over-the-road style bus in CNG. So there aren't really any other companies at the moment actually that provide a commuter style bus powered by CNG, which is why we're doing the sole source agreement with MCI.
Okay. And this was specifically, the DOT money in the our program was for CNG bus purchases for municipalities?
Yes.
Okay. Glad some company figured out to do that in the U.S. Okay, any questions, Mr. Alarcon or Mr. Rosendahl? No. Mr. Alarcon?
How many, the outside contracting that you're looking at, was any of that work performed by city employees in the past?
No.
Okay. And if you could pull city employees back from furloughs and other reductions in workforce, would you be able to expedite these projects?
No, really the issue is dealing with the Federal Transit Administration. I don't think on this particular project that city staffing is an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I think we got a little bit more time, so we're going to run you through the other key projects, which are the left turns, the signals, and then LED conversion. And I'd like John Fisher, our Assistant General Manager, to quickly run you through those.
Always good to see you.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'll first run you through the LED retrofit program. That's been a 5-year effort using city crews. The last 2 years of the effort is funded through the ARA program. And we're happy to report that at this point in time, about 93% of the city has been retrofitted to LEDs. All of our 93% of the signal lights are using LEDs. By July, we will be fully converted throughout the city so that every signal light in the city is energy efficient LED, and all the pedestrian signals will have the countdown feature. So that program is on schedule and will be completed before the ARA deadline, and will be completed by July the 1st.
And just on
And if
that
I'm not
point,
mistaken, that would be the largest installation in the United States.
Right.
I mean, I'm very excited about this. Obviously, this is a huge plus for us. And in the long run, the bulb lasts longer, right? And the maintenance is, and the energy
bulb
use
lasts,
is less. Explain how it works.
They reduce energy consumption by 90%. The old bulbs that we had would last 18 months. The new LED modules last 6 years, nominally 6 years. They don't burn out like light bulbs do, but they fade. And once, after about 6 years, they fade below the level where they're considered safe. So after 6 years, we will start having to replace those. But we are completing the initial installation of them. The other two programs are the new signal program and the left turn arrow program. They are primarily performed by city crews, but the way we build signals is city crews do most of the work. We use a contractor for the trenching of conduit, for the signal conduit. And Amir has gone over the issue regarding furloughs and overtime, but the other stumbling block that we faced was the award of the contract for the trenching and conduit work. Now, the city has a minority business enterprise, women business enterprise program, and many years ago we had awarded a contract to do that trenching under those city guidelines. We thought when we entered this federal program that we could continue to use that contractor. The feds pointed out to us, though, that they have a slightly different program, a DBE program, a Disadvantaged Business Enterprise program, and that we had to go through their process. But that process also had been modified recently to an underutilized Disadvantaged Business Enterprise program. So we had to then bid that under the federal guidelines and could not use the contractor that we had on board. So that was one step in the delay. The other step was after we bid it out, the responders were not fully responsive to the DBE guidelines, partly because they had changed at the federal level and they were not fully familiar with them. So we had to go out to bid again through the Board of Public Works. And through that process, there was some delay there. But fortunately, that was approved in November 2010, and we got our contractor on board by late January, and now we're making good progress in completing the trenching at all the intersections so that our crews can get back to the intersections, erect the poles, erect the heads, and wire up the signals.
Just a question, and maybe it's a little too provincial, and maybe it's too late. Have all of the signals areas where you want to make a left-hand turn signal been identified and are moving forward, or is there still time to add? For instance, I'll give you two examples. The corner of Rose and Lincoln, it's a huge problem ever since a whole new set of projects got there, including Whole Foods and others. People on both intersections trying to make a left-hand turn, huge lines. And the second provincial one I have is on Barrington and Olympic going west. Another large, and these things happen year after year, day after day, depending on changes, but in my side of the district here, it is hugely impactful. Are they able to be entered into this, or is it too late?
Well, it's really too late. At the time that we applied for the funds, we had to identify the locations. So every location that we had at that time that we could identify got into the program, and that was 85 left turn arrows at 47 intersections. But yes, you're right. It needs to be an ongoing program. Right. So I think we can seek out federal safety grant projects to put in other left turn arrows as we go along, but yes, there is a need for an ongoing
program. If I could just go in the record and look at one on Olympic going west at Barrington. And the other one is the entire Rose Lincoln.
Yeah, which is a state highway, so we'll have to work.
Got to deal with Caltrans
on that.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll look at that. Thank you.
With the signals and the left-hand turn arrows, and I assume also with LED lights, obviously if we move towards furloughs being ended, that's helpful. Managed hiring and furloughs, roughly, it's on here, maybe 10% to 20% slowdown in these projects. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's about accurate, sir.
Okay. And you still have position vacancies from the trained signal construction positions?
Yes, and I think, again, as we look at our budget, and that's where we will be deliberating before you, we have to see what the mayor's budget will have in it. But I think that's where we will have an opportunity to look at positions and additional city forces because of the fact that these projects, but I think it's a balance because we have to, as a department, make sure we have sustainable programs. We don't want to, have certain positions that may occur, pension costs, where these projects are only 1 or 2 years. So we're acknowledging, or we want to make sure we do it right.
Okay. Well, obviously, in those areas, especially if it's special funded, I think you'd find some sympathy on the council for making sure you have the proper staffing levels to get that work done. And we look forward to seeing that and seeing all our traffic signals get completed this year and next. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Council.
All right. There are no further questions. Is there any public comment today on these items? All right. Well, with 2 minutes to spare, we will adjourn this meeting of the Ad Hoc Committee on Economic Recovery and Reinvestment. Thank you to the Department of Transportation for their continuing work on that. We look forward to following up the federal government on some of the things that have slowed us down and hopefully ending some of the staffing shortages here that have also contributed to that. But we will see you back here in 2 weeks. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
You hit her right now.